Hi, and thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Furk, aka Phil, and originally I wanted to post a video about street photography and being an introvert, but since yesterday there was a camera launch, the Lumix S9, I watched several videos about that camera, and I thought it might be interesting for you to share my thoughts about that camera, since in my opinion a lot of potential buyers would be better off by buying an older camera like a Sony a7C. But first of all, let's dive into the pros I listed for the S9. And just a quick disclaimer, I'm basing my pros and cons only on the spec sheets and the videos I saw online. I haven't had the chance to use the camera myself yet. As soon this camera is released and the guys from Fotoprofi Essling have one in stock, I will try to get my hands into that camera to test it myself and use it. But for now, as I mentioned, only pros and cons based on spec sheets and the feedback of all the YouTube reviewers. First pro I see in this camera, the S9, is definitely the price. If you look at all the other camera brands, there are only a few brands which has full frame cameras in a compact body at the price of $1,500. In Germany it's 1,700 euros, and for a new camera release it's definitely a good price. And I can see that if you are already in the L-mount system or already have a Lumix Panasonic camera and need a second body, the S9 might be a good choice simply based on the price. But because of the limitations of this camera, the price is in my opinion also relative, but I will get to that in the cons section. Second pro in my eyes, as already mentioned, the form factor. I think only Canon and Sony have currently full frame options in small bodies. Sony with the A7C lineup, and Canon has the Canon R8, but that's all currently on the market regarding small bodies with full frame sensors. If I missed something, drop it in the comments. And there's definitely currently a shift on the camera market and the demand regarding small and compact cameras. This demand has been kicked off by the Leica Q hype and the X100 lineup of Fujifilm. Fujifilm only has APS-C, but still the demand of small compact cameras is there. And I personally like small and compact form factors of cameras, so I'm pretty happy to see that more and more companies jumping on that wagon and doing the best to release small camera bodies with full frame sensors. Which is also great to see in the S9 is that the sensor is the same like the S5 II lineup of Panasonic. So regarding the sensor itself, you don't have any compromises within this small body. Third point, which I definitely also count into the pro section, is the new designed app from Panasonic. I saw that in several videos that the creators said that Lumix has redesigned the app from the scratch, and they are quite surprised that the connection between the camera and the smartphone is quite stable. Looks like it's quite reliable to use the app. And that's definitely something I'm glad to see, that camera brands are improving regarding their apps. In my opinion, the current state-of-the-art app experience, as I mentioned, in my opinion, is the Leica app. I haven't had any issues regarding the Leica app yet, regarding shutdowns, connection issues, you mentioned it, compared to the experience I had with Nikon, Canon, Sony and Fujifilm. Sure, they have all redesigned and updated their apps, but still I have here and there some connection drops, and because of the experience I gathered over the time with these apps, every time I use the app I still have in mind that it might not be reliable and have the fear that something will go wrong. That is something I have not experienced with the Leica app, and I'm happy to see that Panasonic has prioritized the app experience and the stability of the connection between camera and smartphone to ensure the data transfer is reliable, and that's definitely something I welcome to see. The next point I definitely see also as a big pro is the LUT feature. Looks like that Panasonic is pushing that LUT feature extremely on this camera, because you have a dedicated button to press it. What does it does? Basically you can upload your custom LUTs for photo and video onto the S9 camera, and then apply that LUT on your images, both on video and photo. It's basically some kind of film simulation, you could say. It's technically it's just a preset which you can just throw into your image. But this is something that in the creator space and photo space a lot of people has requested, because regarding LUTs you can customize a lot more compared to the settings of Fujifilm, where you can customize and create film simulations, or the settings of cameras in general. And that's definitely a move from Panasonic to jump on that film simulation demand, which has been pushed by Fujifilm the last few years. And I'm interested if this LUT feature will impact other camera brands. And since this topic is quite interesting for me personally, regarding LUTs and film simulation, etc., I will make a dedicated video about this topic, because I think this might rival Fujifilm extremely. Now let's look at the cons of this new release. In my opinion, these cons are also the reason why you might consider an older camera like the Sony A7C more than this S9. One big factor is the recording limit in video. I'm happy to see that all the creators who were invited to Japan and got that camera in their hands were allowed and did report that there's recording limits on the video specs. Although you have all the high-end specs regarding video recording like the S5 II, they are limited regarding the recording time. Lumix has justified it by saying that they have high overheating standards, but as a consumer, and in my opinion, these limits are just stupid. They also say that this S9 camera is more aimed for short form content creation, and in my opinion, that's just marketing BS. Sure, if you just shoot some B-roll, etc., and some reels, you won't run into these recording limits. But if you are dropping over $1,000 to buy a camera, you don't want to have any recording limits if you want to use the camera for talking headshots like I'm doing right now with my ZF. If you look back, it's not that long ago that camera brands has dropped that 30-minute recording limit, and I think most of you also remember that Canon were one of the last brands who dropped that limit. And everyone was bashing them that they still had the 30-minute recording limit on their cameras on later releases. Yeah, back then that recording limit was already an issue, and now we have it in a 2024 camera where you have the recording limits up to 10 or 13 minutes. And for me, that would be the main reason why I would not buy the S9. So I hope that Panasonic will change that with the firmware. Let's see what they will do with that feedback, because other YouTubers who had that camera already in their hands reported they had recorded several times after the 10-minute mark, and the camera did not overheat as quickly. So I guess that limit is just a safety net from Panasonic. Let's see what they will do. Just wanted to quickly jump in and say that you should check out Matt's video about the time recording limit. He did a great job deep diving on that topic, and he also did several tests on his own. So check that video out. Regarding the LUT feature, which I already mentioned, it looks like that the S9 is also somehow aimed at photographers. But here you also have several limits. Some of them don't make sense for me. Two factors are definitely because of the cost cutting. The S9 does not have a mechanical shutter. I guess that's definitely because of the form factor. The Sony A7C lineup also don't have a mechanical shutter, so I'm assuming that's because of the size. And the S9 has no viewfinder. This move is nothing new. Sony has done it with the ZV-E10 and the ZV-1 with the explanation that these cameras are only video-centric cameras. The S9 seems to be also a video-centric camera. Of course, if you cut out the viewfinder, it's also a cost factor. At this point, I'm not sure if it's better to leave it out or to implement a small or mediocre EVF, because if you look at the release of the Sony A7C1 back then, this camera has a very small viewfinder. I used it myself back then, and It was not a pleasant experience in my opinion. I ended up using the screens anyway. So yeah, take it for what it's worth. I think at this point it's a matter of preference, and the EVF is definitely something which is just falling out of the cost cutting part, I guess. The next point which I don't understand is the cold shoe. The S9 only has a cold shoe and not a hot shoe. Therefore, you are not able to connect any accessories like a flash on that camera. I don't understand it, because the S9 is somehow also aimed at photographers, and photographers like to use flash. Specifically, I think you can get great looking images or special looks with these LUTs combined with a flash. But this camera doesn't have a hot shoe, it only has a cold shoe. So I guess that's also a cost decision factor, but for me this is definitely a weird one. And the last con in my opinion is definitely the ergonomics, and here I'm not only talking about the missing grip. Here you can attach a small rig grip like it looks like, but if you look at the pictures closely, you will also notice that the S9 has quite little customization buttons. But for me, which is much more important, is the lack of the dials. You don't have a front dial and you don't have a back dial. You only have that D-pad with this wheel. This is something I have to see when I have the camera in my own hands, if that is something I'm not liking. But based on my experience with other cameras which were missing that, yeah, it's definitely a con regarding the ergonomics. For example, the original A7C didn't have a front dial, and a lot of people have criticized that fact, and Sony has listened to them and implemented the front dial in the A7C Mark II. If you look at these cons, I think that if you are a photographer, Lumix S9 is definitely not the first choice for you. In my opinion, the limitations are too high, and you might be better off by buying a used A7C, for example, which also have the same form factor. They all almost weigh the same, and the size is also quite similar. So if you are looking for a small form factor, I think the A7C is a good first camera to look at, specifically because it's the older one. In Germany, I see that the prices for used A7Cs are between 1,000 and 1,200 euros. Depending on your region, that might vary. But yeah, look at the prices at your country. Most of the cons which I listed for the S9, the A7C does not have, if you are photography centric. If you're more of a video shooter, in my opinion, the A7C is still a good option. Sure, if you want to get 6K open gate recording and stuff like that, then you have to look elsewhere. I think Lumix is still the only camera brand which offers that for a decent price, with the S9 and the S5 II. And I think it's, again, more and more important that you personally know what kind of specs and which use cases you want to use a camera, because all of these videos about new product releases always want to sell you the latest stuff, but most of you might not need that, and therefore everyone has to do their homework to check what are their needs and which camera fits to that. And I personally think that the older cameras like the A7C might fit for most people more than the S9, but perhaps my opinion will change when I get my hands onto that camera and also use that LUT feature. Let's see. These were my thoughts about the S9 release from Panasonic. And if you're still here until this point watching, thank you very much for your time. You are the one who deserves the like. If you want to support my small little channel, you can check the affiliate links below in the description or buy me a coffee, also via the link below in the description. And if you want to see more videos from my channel, just click on one of these which YouTube suggests to you, and have a nice day.